A very good evening to you, RD viewers. Thank you for staying tuned on Rest TV. I am Jackie Lingla, your host here on the Financial Eye, every Monday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And tonight we are exploring more about the oil sector. Of course, as Uganda gears to commercialize its oil sector commencing in 2026, we want to know what is the progress, what are the opportunities, what are the challenges that may entail in the sector, and of course, how is the oil sector contributing to the economic growth and job creation in Uganda at large. So tonight we have an official from Bank of Uganda, that is Ms. Martha Kizakalema from the Petroleum Revenue Investment Reserve, Bank of Uganda. You're very welcome, madam.
Thank you so much, Jackie. Very good to be here.
We are very excited to have you on Rest TV Waves. Thank you for honoring our invitation.
Thank you for inviting us. Bank of Uganda is very happy to be on Rest TV.
Could you just maybe expound more of your department in Bank of Uganda? What is its mandate?
So we are the Petroleum Revenue Investment Reserve. I know it's a very long name. But our main job is to invest part of the money that comes from oil revenues. So part of it, of course, will go to the Consolidated Fund in Ministry of Finance for expenditure now. And that's what you see happening now. So money that we have gotten from taxes, surface rentals, etc., is what you see has built the Hoima Stadium. Some of it has gone into oil roads and different infrastructure projects. But Bank of Uganda's job is to take some of that money and invest it for the future. So when oil runs out, which it will eventually, that money can then come back into the economy and maintain all those things that government is planning to build within the next 20 to 25 years.
Okay, thank you, Martha, for expounding more. But before we dive into our discussion, could you just give us an overview of the current state of the oil sector in Uganda?
We are almost there. As I'm sure you have heard the Minister of Energy saying, oil is expected to come in July 2026. So we are very excited for that. The pipeline is almost done. I was there in September with a team from Bank of Uganda, including the Deputy Governor. And we met people from Petroleum Authority and UNOC and the investors on the ground. And a lot of things are almost done. Kingfisher has drilled most of the wells that it needs for first oil. Lingla, which is another site that is run mainly by Total, is almost done. The pipeline, last I heard, was 75% done and is on track to be done in July 2026. So we are on, like we're steady progress. I know there has been a lot of shifting of dates. Some people said 2020, some people said 2022, but we are giving you a firm date of July 2026.
So we should be sure 2026, you're commercializing.
We are going to have oil. First oil will come out of the ground in 2026, yes.
Okay. Could you just explain to us how is the Petroleum Revenue Investment Reserve managed?
So the mandate is given to Bank of Uganda to manage the Petroleum Revenue Investment Reserve. But I can start from the top to talk about the governance structure. So of course, all Ugandans are the owners of the oil, and you are represented by your members of parliament. So parliament is the one who has the overall ownership of oil revenue in Uganda. So they oversee Ministry of Finance, who has the mandate to manage our money, right? Okay. And to manage the projects. And then Ministry of Finance and Parliament gave the operational management of the Petroleum Revenue Investment Reserve to Bank of Uganda. This is because we have expertise in managing our foreign reserves, which we have been doing for years, and expertise in investing money. That's what we do. That's the bank's job. So that is where Bank of Uganda comes in. So that's its job that's how it comes down to BOU managing the Petroleum Revenue Investment Reserve.
Okay. So how is the issue of accountability and transparency made put in place in all those operation processes?
So we are very, very, we know that oil money is, everyone wants to know what's happening with oil money and oil revenue. So we are really trying to be as transparent and as accountable as possible. First of all, as Bank of Uganda, we're having lots of stakeholder engagements. We recently had one with the media to talk to them about what's happening in the industry, what Bank of Uganda's role is. We also talked to civil society organizations, and we're now in schools, universities, talking to university students about what's happening. So we want to be accountable to everyone. But in terms of transparency, we have a lot of reports that we produce, which are, some of them are mandated by law, but then also when we start the investing process, when first oil comes, we shall also be giving these reports to the public. We shall publish them on the Bank of Uganda website. We shall have a page strictly for petroleum where you can go and see how we are investing, how much money we have in the accounts. You shall see the decisions that we are making. We shall provide you with reports. We shall provide you with our investment policies. All these statements will be available online, so we can be extremely transparent, but also accountable. So you will know how every single penny that has come to Bank of Uganda is spent and invested.
Okay. What are the key main challenges that you've faced when managing the reserve?
I think most of our challenges have not come necessarily from managing the reserve, but I think the delays have affected us as well. I think we had a lot of backlash in the international community about oil and environmental degradation. Yet there has been a lot of work done, especially by the Petroleum Authority, to make sure that everything that is being done in the field is safe and we are being environmentally conscious. And so with a lot of that backlash, it took a lot of time for us to get funding for some of the major projects, like the East African pipeline and even the refinery, right? And it doesn't seem like that would affect Bank of Uganda, but until oil is out of the ground, Bank of Uganda cannot get any money. So that has been our major stumbling block. But we had a lot of help from African Development Bank and our other development partners like the IMF and the World Bank and other sovereign wealth funds, especially African sovereign wealth funds. And we're here, we're almost there. So even though we had those challenges, I think we've come through winning at the end.
So you have anticipated over 160,000 jobs for Ugandans in case you commence by 2026 as a prospect. What other opportunities are out there for Ugandans?
I think Ugandans should perhaps think also out of the box. Maybe you are not, when we were there recently, there is a Ugandan company that is doing food for the people on ground. I forget its name, I think it was called MSL. It's providing food to people in the camps. So instead of thinking strictly—
Solid food or cooked food?
Both.
Oh.
It is, it's farming and then harvesting and doing all the work and then providing the cooked food to these people. So instead of thinking, there's also another company, Luwero Industries, that's doing waste management. That's taking all the waste from Kingfisher and then cleaning it and turning it into fertilizers. So I think instead of thinking about, oh, how can I start drilling or how can I start welding, think of things that feed into things. You know, think of maybe I can provide transport. Maybe I can provide the cars that need to be driven at the oil sites. Or there's even the industrial park that's coming up that's going to be anchored by the refinery. Start an industry there, you know. There's so many opportunities for Ugandans. They just need to think about them and go out there, go to the place. You'll see that they're available.
Okay, now who manages the government oil transactions and what role does Bank of Uganda play in it?
So Uganda Revenue Authority is in charge of collecting all the revenue on behalf of Uganda. So that is the first step in the procedure. And that revenue is deposited in two accounts. we have a US dollar account and a Uganda shilling account. And those are domiciled in Bank of Uganda because we still have our role as banker to government. Then those are, of course, monitored by Accountant General, which is in Ministry of Finance, and then audited by Auditor General. So those are all the different. And then when the money is eventually sent to the different accounts, it will need a warrant from Auditor General, but it will be done by Parliament. And then Bank of Uganda will get a bit, and Ministry of Finance will get a bit.
Okay, in the process of receiving and disbursing the oil revenue, how is it prioritized among sectors?
So that is the role of Ministry of Finance. It's not actually the role of Bank of Uganda. But Ministry of Finance looks at the most critical sectors, especially healthcare, infrastructure. Oil money will not be used to pay debt. It will be strictly used, and that's in the law, for infrastructure projects. So it will be used to build roads, it will be used to build hospitals, it will be used to build schools. So government looks at the most critical needs based on its development plan and based, of course, on the 10-year growth strategy, and then will invest in those critical sectors when the oil money starts to flow.
Okay. Now, we know that you projected or estimated about 1.6 barrels
1.6 billion barrels.
Billion barrels of oil in Uganda. And it was stated that we can actually extract 1.4 billion barrels.
Oh, we estimated about 6 billion, but recoverable at the moment with the current technology is about 1.4.
Recoverable. Could you just explain to us that term, recoverable?
Okay, so imagine, let me look for a good analogy. Imagine you have a big pot, yes, but only a small spoon. Yes.
Okay.
So you can't get to the bottom of the pot, right? With the technology you have, which is your small spoon, right? But you can get a lot from the top, right? So the rest of it is there. And when we have different companies that come on board, they might be able to help us get it out of the ground. But right now, with the companies that we have, we estimate that we will get out of the ground 1.4 billion barrels.
Okay.
So that is a recoverable amount.
So that is the 1.4 billion barrels.
Yes.
So the other question would be, what strategy have you put on board to ensure that the future generation can also earn from the extraction of oil without being depleted as a resource?
That is actually the role of Bank of Uganda. That is where Bank of Uganda comes in. So when they were coming up with the Public Finance Management Act of 2015, they were thinking both of the current generation and the future generation. So they didn't want all the oil money to be spent right now on the things that we need right now. So in our discussions with Ministry of Finance, we came up with what we call a fiscal rule. It's just strange terminology to mean how much will go where. So we looked at the country, looked at how much it can absorb without causing disruption, and said, okay, this amount, which is about 0.8% of GDP, will go to the country to take care of the country's needs. And 0.8 seems small, yes, but it's actually a really large figure. It can take care of about 55,000 kilometers of roads. It can build about 5,000 hospitals and maybe about 92,000 schools. So it's a lot of money,
That's a lot
right?
of money, yeah.
It's a lot of money. And then the rest will go into the Petroleum Revenue Investment Reserve. So now in Bank of Uganda, we will invest that money for the future so that when this money has run out from oil, then we can now maintain these roads that government has built. We can maintain these hospitals so that the money will last us into perpetuity. Kind of like the Dubai, Abu Dhabi model, yes? Save some, use some now. So your savings can help you in the future.
Okay. Could you just walk us through the flow of oil revenue from receipt to allocation?
Okay, so first we we have an amount that will come to government's share through the production sharing agreements. So that amount will then go into what we call the petroleum fund. That is a big account where all petroleum revenue goes, yes. And then from there, Parliament will decide, based on the fiscal rule that I just talked about, how much goes to the consolidated fund for expenditure now, and then how much goes to the Petroleum Revenue Investment Reserve. So it's quick flow. Okay. There's not a lot of, there's a bit that goes to UNOC right before it comes to the consolidated fund or to Bank of Uganda, but it is also based on specific models that UNOC will have to let Parliament know beforehand. So Parliament gets all the figures beforehand and then decides on the split.
Okay. We have heard of the long-term outcomes that, that would benefit from as Ugandans. Now I'm more interested in the Ugandans whose land was identified to own the reserves. Where have they been catered for as yet?
Yes, most of the people, I think 99% when I was there, 99% of the people whose land was allocated have been compensated. A lot of them have had either, there was a lot of education on that part to say whether they wanted housing, a new piece of land with housing, or cash. And there was a lot of education before, because when you get cash, it's easy for you to spend it very quickly. So people were educated. A lot of people opted to get land and for these oil companies to build them houses. And the houses were improved houses. So if you had a 2-bedroom, they move you to a 3-bedroom.
Okay.
If you have a 3-bedroom, they move you to a 4-bedroom. So everything was a lot of improvement. Of course, there have been a few disgruntled people that are not happy with what they have gotten, but 99% of the people have been compensated and relocated. Okay. So Petroleum Authority has done a good job.
Okay, we applaud them for that. But now moving forward also, about the oil revenue, how do we make sure that it's not diverted to non-essential purposes or unproductive ones?
So thankfully, a lot of these things are already put in law, right? So the Public Finance Management Act is there. It says that the money must go for infrastructure projects. And so far, it has been going for infrastructure projects. And so you have your parliamentarians, your Budget and Finance Committee. We also are audited quite frequently. Yes, so there's Auditor General who will look at the books and external auditors who will also look at the books. So there is a lot of accountability in the process. And then, of course, we have the tight fiscal rule that will determine how much goes to the economy and how much comes to Bank of Uganda. And then there will also be audit in that process. So we know that there is worry about money being misspent, but we're trying to make sure that by law, the money will go where it needs to go. Okay.
One more key question before we go into our commercial break. We have, how about market share? Is the oil production or...
The production sharing agreement?
Yes. Is it only for government or
What
the private sector is involved?
Like the money from oil going to the private sector?
Can I buy shares?
No, I don't think you can buy shares.
Because it's a government entity. Because
yes,
now
it's
I'm
a
looking
government.
at Ugandans who are watching. And
yes.
Some of them do not know this information.
Okay.
So we need to know in detail.
Okay, so let me perhaps explain what a production sharing agreement is. Okay. So Uganda, when we found out that we had oil, we did not have the capability to get the oil out of the ground, right? So we invited Total and Sinok and other companies to help us get the oil out of the ground. Now, when they're getting that oil out of the ground, they have costs. Yes? Okay. We are not paying those costs. How they get their money back for the costs they have spent is from sale of oil. So we say, okay, you will get this percentage to help you pay off your costs, this percentage of oil,
And
to
then
help you
Uganda
pay,
gets...
and then Uganda gets the rest. And Uganda gets a bigger share, of course, because the oil belongs to
us.
Ugandans and not to the private companies. So
Okay.
that's essentially what a production sharing agreement is. So the production sharing agreement just lists out how much gets, who gets what and how much. Yeah.
So that is exactly what we have for you tonight as we explain more about the oil sector in Uganda. What are the opportunities? What are the key challenges? And what are we learning from now, such that in the future we do not complain. The government has, done the extraction. We have not gained as Ugandans. It's better you get this knowledge and see where the opportunities are, and then of course venture into them if you are a private sector person. And of course, if you're not, you just need to know, how is the government investing this money? How am I benefiting as a Ugandan? So stay tuned on Rest TV. We're going for a commercial break. We'll be right back.
The Financial Eye, making finance clear. No complicated terms, just the economy explained. The Financial Eye. See the economy.
will try to expand.
You're very welcome. Please welcome back from the commercial break here on the Financial Eye every Monday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. And tonight we're exploring more on the oil sector as we get ready to commercialize Uganda's oil by 2026. That is by the Ugandan government. Of course, we need to know some of the key priorities of if this money comes through, what are the priority areas that they will invest these revenues, and also how have we progressed as Uganda in the oil sector? What are the challenges? What are the opportunities? How are Ugandans benefiting? How is the revenue contributing to the economic growth, and so on? So tonight I have Madam Chiza Martha. Is it Martha?
Yes, Martha Kiza Kalama.
Martha Kiza from Bank of Uganda taking us through, and we were still expounding more about the oil sector, but I feel like you should go deeper concerning the challenges that you're facing in your department.
Okay. Within the department, it has been tricky, first of all, to come up with policies, and because this is something new. This is something Uganda has never done before. We are Uganda's first sovereign wealth fund. How do we manage this money in a way that will benefit all Ugandans 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now? How do we make the money that we will get last for all those years? Where should we put this money in order to make the most money? But then also we are part of the team that is in the negotiations. We are part of the team that has negotiated the pipeline and the refinery. And there have been a lot of people that have come on board that do not necessarily want the best deal for Ugandans, which has also made things take a little bit of time. So it's when someone comes and they say, oh, I will help you get your oil out of the ground, but I want you to give me 26% of the money. And it's like, what about Ugandans? How will Ugandans benefit if you're taking 26% of the money? So those are some of the challenges that we are facing. But I think it has taken a while for oil to come up, but it has been good at the same time because the policies we have now are strong, the laws are strong. We have done a lot of work in the background to make sure that everything we are doing is not just thinking about the future generations, but also the current generations. We're balancing both. But also we want to do the best for our country. We want people to go out there and say, okay, Uganda has used its oil well. Yeah, and I think we're there.
What reporting mechanisms are in place to keep the stakeholders informed about the fund performance?
So we have some reports that are mandated by law, first of all. So we have to provide a monthly performance report to Ministry of Finance. Then we also have to provide quarterly, semi-annual, and annual performance reports. On top of that, at the beginning of every financial year, which is in July, we have to provide a report on the plan of what we're going to do with the money for the next financial year to Ministry of Finance. And those are just external reports. Internally, we also have a lot of reports that we have to provide because this is not money to play around with. So we shall have to provide weekly reports to our investment committee. We shall have to provide also monthly performance reports. Anytime we make a decision, we shall have to provide reports on why we are making those decisions and if those decisions are the best. And a lot of those reports will be published. A lot of those reports will be publicly available information for a lot of Ugandans.
So how are you balancing risk and return in the fund's investment portfolio?
So we have a set risk tolerance, and maybe I can get into a bit of the details about what risk tolerance is and how we look at it as fund managers. So let's say you are starting a business and you're like, okay, I have 2 million shillings to start this business. But if I start this business, I know that I'm happy to lose like 100,000 in the beginning. So that is essentially what risk tolerance is. So we look at international standards of how other sovereign wealth funds are investing. And we see, okay, based on their like 5-year, 10-year trajectory, this is the amount of money that they're willing to make. And this is the amount of loss that they're willing to take. And then we also base on that. But then also, at the end of the day, Ministry of Finance is the one that tells us, hey, as a country, this is how much risk we are willing to take. And they do that through the asset classes. They tell us, don't go into these very risky ones, or you can take a little bit of these risky ones, but not too much. And that is how we are balancing risk and return in our investment policy.
Okay, could you highlight just some of the risks of us investing in this oil sector that are known globally?
So are you talking about financial risks or?
Generally.
Okay, so financial risks, of course, you can lose a little bit of money, but we are trying to mitigate that, of course. Then there's also currency risk.
How do you lose the money? Because there is always a cause.
Yes, there's always a cause. Let's say when you're investing internationally, a lot of things depend on how what we call markets are moving, right? So now like the tariffs that the US put, let's say you had put a lot of money into US treasuries, but now there are tariffs and everyone is running away from the US, right? You could lose money there, right? Because of the market movements. Then also our money is dependent on oil. So if the oil price falls, there could be loss of revenue in that aspect. And so those are things we think about when we are investing. How will we manage if the oil price goes down? How are we looking at the economy? And that's part of my job. Like, where do I think the economy is going to go? What do I think China is going to do? What do I think Japan is going to do? And then I balance it based on that.
So you mentioned earlier about the asset classes. What are those to a layman person in simple terms?
In simple terms, we are investing in bonds. So I think most people know what bonds are because Bank of Uganda has been thinking about treasury bills and bonds for a long time. So a bond is really just a loan to government for a specific period of time at a specific interest rate. So we are investing in bonds for sure, bonds that deal with infrastructure. So countries abroad typically issue bonds to build roads, to build bridges, to build dams. So we'll invest in infrastructure bonds. We will invest in bonds issued by corporations.
So you do invest in asset classes,
Yes.
and then also sectors.
Yes, so we do sector specific. No, so it's top down. So the asset classes are the big ones. So bonds and shares or equities, stocks. And then within those bonds, we look at specific sectors like infrastructure, country, corporate. And then even then, we break it down. So if you're investing in a country, which countries? You can't invest in all the countries, so which ones? If you're looking at corporate bonds, which sectors do you think is going to do best? Like now, AI is a big sector, right? Everyone is talking about AI. So are you going to invest in AI? If you're going to invest in AI, are you going to invest in the US or are you going to invest in China? Where are you betting on? And then if you are also investing in infrastructure, which infrastructure do you think is good? Are you going to invest in the US? But the US has built most of its bridges. Are you going to invest in the Middle East, which is building? Are you going to invest in Africa? So there are a lot of small decisions in there. So it's big asset classes, but then also sector and country and company specific.
Okay. Now, are there any opportunities for collaboration or partnership with other organizations or countries in managing this fund?
Yes, and we are actually planning on joining a lot of these organizations because they help us out a lot. One of them that has recently come up and is doing really, really well is the African Sovereign Investors Forum, which is a collaboration of currently, I think they have 15 African sovereign wealth funds that are coming together to build Africa. So it was started by the Nigerian Sovereign Wealth Fund and the Morocco Sovereign Wealth Fund. And they have pulled other sovereign wealth funds across the globe to invest in infrastructure, agriculture, AI, all in Africa. So Uganda is planning to join. It is also planning to join the International Forum of Sovereign Wealth Funds. So that one is the big global one. And then, of course, the Commonwealth one. So we are collaborating right now with a lot of African sovereign wealth funds because we want to build Africa. We're in Africa and we think Africa coming together can help Uganda not only develop, but it also puts Uganda on the world stage to say, hey, Africans, we're uniting finally. We're not looking at Europe, we're not looking at America for help. Africa is coming together to build Africa. So that is where our first focus is. But then we shall also join the International and Commonwealth Sovereign Wealth Fund organizations, and to collaborate on different projects. If I can talk about the African Sovereign Investors Forum a little bit more, they are really planning on building infrastructure, especially airports within Africa, right? Especially airports and roads, and also introducing a lot of internet. You know, when you look at countries abroad, they don't have electricity problems like we do, but we know our problems as Africans. So African Sovereign Investors Forum wants to invest in electricity generation across Africa, and that is a big problem for Uganda, and we'll be happy to join that because that would help us as well. So those are some of the collaborations we want to get into.
So are there any specific investment opportunities or projects the fund is looking at currently?
So the one that I talked about of the African Sovereign Investors Forum is one that we are actually looking at. We want to deal with climate change as well, help Uganda invest in more renewable projects so we can be in the renewable space. We want to help Uganda indirectly invest in more digitization, so more internet, more technology in schools. We are also, a lot of our investment is mostly in financial assets though. So we are looking at bonds and stocks first, and then the rest of these more specific investment opportunities will take a smaller portion of our portfolio.
So how do you get to that decision-making process when you're looking at investment?
We have models. As you see me here, I am a mathematician. I am a serious mathematician. So we have models that we look at. How much needs to go where is precisely modeled based on where we think the economy is going to go, what sectors we think will add value to both Uganda and to our portfolio, how we will make money, how much risk. So each of those specific things are modeled quite precisely. We have very big models there in Bank of Uganda and people with very big brains who work on those models. So.
Okay, about the organizations, you mentioned only about the countries for partnership. The organizations that have come on board, apart from the ones we know, the UNOC and so on.
And CNOC and Total. We haven't had a lot of other specific organizations coming on board. We have had help from organizations like NORAD, which is the Norwegian organization for oil and gas, that helped us come up with a lot of our policies and laws. And of course, IMF and the World Bank. But other than that, I don't think there are any. Oh, well, there is African Development Bank, of course, which also helped in financing the East African pipeline.
Yeah, but the door is still open for others?
Yes, the door is still open for others and even other countries to come and explore and get oil out of the ground. So the door is open for a lot of organizations to come in and take advantage of the oil industry in Uganda.
What investment strategies are being considered were implemented for the Petroleum Revenue Investment Reserve?
So I don't want to get too technical on the details because I am aware of our audience, but we are really thinking of putting some of our money in Asia because we think Asia is a great and growing economy. Some of our money in the Middle East. Of course, we want to put money in Africa to help build the Africa supply chain and to invest in people who are investing in us. And then we are, of course, thinking of how to balance risk in taking some safety in US treasuries and, of course, some safety in Japan. So we're looking around the globe to see how to invest our money, just to make sure we're getting as much money that we can for as little risk as possible.
What are the objectives of those investments?
So our first objective is to maximize return. That is our first objective as Uganda's Sovereign Wealth Fund. Then second, we would like to preserve our capital. So we want to keep as much of our money as possible. And then our third, and I think one of our most important, is intergenerational equity. We need to make sure that the money we are investing will also benefit your great-great-great-great-grandchildren. So that is important to us as well.
So how can normal Ugandan out there contribute to this vision?
To the
if I want to if I want to take part,
okay.
How can I?
So we are having a lot of stakeholder engagements currently as Bank of Uganda to let people know about what's happening in the oil industry. So show up, really. Ask us your questions, keep us accountable, because we have a lot of information, truly, and we want to give it to you. And we are also curious about what you want to know about us. And we are also happy to give you investment information. We want you to learn so that in 5 years, you can come up to Martha and be like, I'm not sure about your investment in Japan. And I'll be like, okay, tell me why, you know? So keep us accountable, like show up to our events, to the Bank of Uganda events. Let us talk to you, talk to us. There is no silly question in oil money. It is your money. It belongs to Ugandans. So as much as you want to know about it is as much as we want to tell you about it. So
which mediums are you creating awareness to Ugandans? What mediums are you using?
So right now we are having stakeholder events. We did the media recently and civil society organizations. We're now trying to get into universities to talk to university students because we think it's important that they know, because that's where the jobs are in the future. I want to be able to go to MOOBs and hire my next investment managers from MOOBs. Yes, we're also going to districts around Uganda through Bank of Uganda town halls to talk to people and tell them this is what's happening in the oil industry, but also to get their feedback. Like we recently went to Fort Poto and they were telling us that a lot of people have come promising them money for their land if they were selling their land. So it's also good for us to know that information as Bank of Uganda so we can see how to protect you, yes, as citizens of Uganda. Then we're also on Twitter as Bank of Uganda, and we have the Bank of Uganda website where there's lots of information. Please come to the Bank of Uganda website to see our information. And then we also use as many social media channels as we are. We have the BOU podcast. I was on the BOU podcast. Listen to that and learn about oil. And then also YouTube. We're there as well. So we're trying to get as much information out there as possible. I'm not yet on TikTok. I'm not yet on TikTok. Once I get a Gen Z who's willing to dance, I think we shall get on TikTok. But for me, not yet.
Okay. Okay. Now, also for Ugandans who want to know more about investing in bonds, could you just throw more light on that?
Yes, of course. That's Bank of Uganda's main goal is to improve financial literacy. So Bank of Uganda offers treasury bills and treasury bonds. Now, just to keep it simple, treasury bills are on the shorter end, which is less than 1 year. So we have 91 days, which is 3 months. Okay, let me keep it simple. 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months. So you come and you say, hey, I want to invest for 3 months, and we're happy to do that for you. But there's also the longer end, 2 years, 3 years, up to 25 years. Yes? So what you need to do is simply go to your commercial bank and say, I want to invest in bills and bonds. And your commercial bank will provide you with a form, which is called the CSD form. And you fill out that form and you say, I want to invest my 2 million shillings. The minimum amount is 100,000. So
Right.
really,
So anyone can.
anyone can invest as long as
We
you
used
have
to think
100,000.
only oh my God. Okay.
As long as you have 100,000, you can invest in
What is
treasury
the
bills and bonds.
return?
I do not have the figures off the top of my head, which is funny because I was just looking at them now. But they are on the Bank of Uganda website. Scroll down to the bottom and it will say financial reports. Okay. And they're there. They're listed every week.
Okay.
And there is no fee, please, for investing in bills and bonds.
So I get my 2 million, I'm like, keep
Bank-
it for 2 years,
Yes.
then I come back and I see the interest
Yes,
accrued.
of course there's taxes, but that's URA.
Okay.
But Bank of Uganda is not going to charge you like 100,000 to invest. No,
Okay.
please. Maybe your bank will charge you a small fee for paperwork,
Okay.
but it should be really, really small.
Okay.
But Bank of Uganda is not going to charge you at all. We have auctions, I think, every Wednesday, but you don't even have to wait for the auction. Just go to your bank. They usually have bonds and bills on their books that they are willing to sell to you, and you can invest today, tomorrow, anytime.
What do you need the Ugandans to know tonight from our discussion?
I want you to believe that Bank of Uganda is going to do its best to manage the oil revenue as transparently and with as much accountability as possible. And I know there's been a long wait for oil revenue, but oil is finally here. As our joke Matia Kasaija said, colleagues, oil is coming. So yes, oil is coming. So July 2026, we shall be here, we shall be ready, and we're ready to manage the money as best as we can.
That is well said by Madam Martha Chiza Kalema from Petroleum Revenue Investment Reserve, Bank of Uganda. Get ready for 2026. We'll be seeing oil here in Uganda. Forget the history. We are opening a new page. Stay tuned on Rest TV as always on the Financial Eye every Monday from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. and also for more information to get enlightened of what is happening in your country and how can you contribute as a Uganda to the economic growth of the nation. Have a very good evening. Stay blessed.
The Financial Eye, making finance